Hello and good morning, everybody. And squeak, squeak, squeak from my dog, Kiri, who is very enthusiastic. Get it, Kiri, get it. Get it, Kiri, get it. Come on, get it. One more time. One more time. Get it. Good. So, yes. Good morning. This is Anne. Welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips, where we squeak a lot, apparently, in the morning. Good morning from Kiri, and we are here with my co-host, disembodied voice, Justin, who will not be from the grave today because I remembered to put him in my ear. Yes, lots of doggle faces. Exactly. Yeah. Yes, there's much squeaking this morning. Pardon me. Ugh. Yes, it's definitely an allergy morning out here. But then they're also they're cutting limbs off of the trees. So there's all sorts of tree dust being disturbed as they prune them. So hey guys, I thought we would work on a pirate dude today. But yeah, oh, and New Encode, I haven't seen you for a while. And Trouble is here. We cannot possibly have a stream without having Trouble. At least we're not out looking for trouble. You need a refresh, Shadow Raven. Refresh yourself, refresh. Sweet.
Hello, everyone.
Yes, there you go. Now you've got the Justin voice, Grim. Are you happy? You should be. I hope everybody's thrilled to be here today. I'm going to put my eyeballs in and go to live. Alrighty, so I decided I want to paint Pirate Dude. And sadly, Pirate Dude is probably not generally available. Which Justin and I kind of maybe determined because he was special and resin and all that. But I still want to talk about lighting today, so I thought that I would still work on him. He's still a work in progress that I am liking, so hopefully we can get some work done on him. I kind of wanted to do his blue jacket and show the light on that. There we go, everybody's back. Shadow Raven is back. We can now begin. So yeah, I thought I'd talk a little bit about OSL. Since somebody mentioned, hey, somebody asked me, Justin, the other day if David's class was going to go up on Twitch or on YouTube because they couldn't find it, I think, from ReaperCon. So I don't know if you put it up or...
As of last night.
So as of last night, awesome. Yeah, I knew you were still working on stuff. That's what I told them. I told them that was a you question and that you were still working on stuff, so... Awesome. Well, let's find what's a good color to glaze over these bones? You know, I think that, weirdly, Shield Brown is a good one. And I think for the blue, let me take a look at what I got down here. I tend to keep a lot of very pure blues, and I definitely don't want this to be too bright. So maybe we'll use Void. Void with a bit of cyan highlight, I think. That'll shift it toward green, or we can go up to Tropical, my fave. That might work. Yeah, maybe we'll do Void and Tropical. Two colors that you don't think about mixing typically because they're very different, but it's up on YouTube. Good, everybody, yay! Oh, and our I've slept since then, but I think it's pretty sure that I used Russet Brown with Driftwood because Driftwood Brown 9162 is one of my all-time favorite browns for this sort of thing. I mean, I created it for dried out woods, so it makes sense that you use it. I think I went up to Creamy Ivory from there, unless I miss my guess. I think I mixed it with Driftwood, and I also used it for higher highlights. But yeah, and then I went more parchmenty down here with a color that is now going out of print, which is Stained Ivory, which I'm sad about, because Stained Ivory is the beautiful mid-step between Driftwood and Creamy Ivory, so now we're going to lose that. We're going to have to mix it. More on that in the future on my Patreon, as far as, you know, how to substitute for things that will no longer be around. So this is the piece that we started during ReaperCon that is what I decided to make a lighting piece to talk about lighting and how you can create light in your piece. And I figured, yeah, do we have twitchiness? Mine looks pretty good on my end here. Hold on, let me check. Yeah, only 3.2% drop frames. That's very tiny right now.
Yeah, I'm getting some stutters on my end, but I'm not getting any red bitrate, which means that the spikes are really low.
Okay. Augerbat, and welcome, by the way, Augerbat. I haven't seen you before, so maybe you're new, and if you're new, hi. I'm Anne. So it really depends. If you have, say, the starter set, the Reaper starter set, which is 11 colors that they are kind of a nice breadth over the course of things, Augerbat, then yeah, you're probably going to be doing a lot of adding white to things. But keep in mind that when you're using colors, like here, I'll digress for a second. When you're using colors like red, orange, and green, and even when you're using brown, a logical highlight for these colors, if you have it, is a lighter yellow. Because if you add a little lighter yellow to this brown, it's going to go, it's going to get lighter, but it's also going to get more golden, which can help you with kind of getting a natural light source, because sunlight is a little bit golden. Yellows are natural highlights for greens. They're natural highlights for oranges. And if you don't have an orange, which, if you have a very limited paint selection in the beginning, you might not, then maybe taking a color, not so much like that one. There's differences between yellows. Yellows can be either orangey or kind of green. You can see the difference in this. So usually if you're going to try to mix a yellow into a red for a highlight, because you don't want to go pinkish, I would recommend using an orangey or yellow. So yellow is a very, very versatile color. Always have a couple of them on hand. Like when you're first buying a set, even if you only buy 12 colors, it's worth it to get like an orangey yellow and a not orangey yellow for highlighting. So that would be kind of my answer. Whereas if you're dealing with blues I most often just add white. Today I might use tropical just because I can and because I want it to go a little greenish because my light source is golden. Which is why I went a little orangey with that red velvet cushion in the background. So then I would just add white. And when I'm doing skin tones, Auger, when I'm doing skin tones, I almost always just add white. I start with the 9044 tan skin, which is the most versatile skin tone we have. I actually just did a PDF on this. If you don't know, I have a Patreon, patreon.com/paintingbig. And I do a lot of PDFs on my $5 tier about Reaper paint and about like various colors, how they can be used. And I just did one for the $5 tier this month that tells about how you can make all sorts of different skin tones from this one skin tone. So if you are interested, you can go check it out. I have some free content up. That's patreon.com/paintingbig. There we go. All right, that was my spiel. Yeah, the spiel is done. Now we can move on. Thank you, Gergie, for the link. Yes, all yellow. Yes. Thanks for the Coldplay, Shadow Raven. I love Coldplay. Okay. So yeah, no problem. That's the kind of color or the kind of question that I live to answer. So since I created all of them, but yeah. So yeah, yellow, very high utility color. People often don't think about it because they don't think I'm going to be painting something yellow. I'm not going to be, yellow isn't my favorite color. I probably won't paint a model yellow. Why do I need it? Well, it's really useful for highlighting. That's why you need it. Okay, you can even use a really light yellow for skin highlights if you want, but that's a different stream probably. Might even be a Patreon thing. All right, so I'm going to start with Shield Brown for the bones. So for those of you who know, obviously have noticed, I did a Zenith highlight prime on this, which means I started black, and then I sprayed white from the direction very strongly that I wanted the light to fall, so that we get this kind of dramatic lighting effect. Now to preserve this and be able to work from it, and I was just talking to somebody about this, I think yesterday, but to preserve this, your first layer has to be really, really thin. And then working up and down from there, you need to constantly reinforce this Zenith. Because you will be astonished. A lot of people seem to just imply that Zenith is like a one-shot wonder, and you just put your paint over it, and it works great. It creates highlights and shadows. Well, somewhat. But if you're going to put more than one layer, or more than 2 or 3 layers of paint over it, you have to work to reinforce it. Hey, Tashi. Which means that what I'm talking about is by the time you're getting on your second layer of paint on here, this is all going to start getting covered up. You are going to lose your darks, you're going to lose your lights, you're going to get more like a mid-tone that has a little bit of variation. So if you're using this to create a strong highlight, you need to reinforce that from the get-go after your first layer. Yeah, yellow can be hard to work with if you're painting something yellow, but I did that as well on my my Patreon recently. I think it was a $2 video, actually. It was a cheapo, I think, with the Tiefling. We showed Tiefling yesterday. She has a yellow skirt, and I showed how to get a nice solid base coat on that. What kind of colors to use to get a solid base coat on yellow. I'm just going to knock things off the table today. This is apparently my day for that. So yeah, okay, working with bone, and we're going to work with blue. So let's start with, I'm going to start with the dark blue. I'm going to start with Void. Another great color for this would be my favorite Ridderlick, but it's buried right now, so I didn't want to dig it up. Ridderlick is even darker and more black. It'll give you a more navy blue. Void blue, although it has some black in it, is nonetheless a pretty vibrant blue, so we may need to knock it down. I'm not too worried about it because I know I'm going to be going up kind of greenish with it. And also this red is really intense, right? That's a pretty bright red. So using a pretty vibrant blue with it is actually a good choice. That's what you want to do. Alrighty. Oh, and we have a Daffodweir, and we have a Valandar. What's good? Hey, thanks for showing up, guys. The gang is all here, or the gang is mostly here. I was assuming mostly. Alright, so here we go. So shake well. Blues tend to settle out. They have a lot of our blues are built with high density pigments, which means they tend to settle out in the bottle a little bit, so you do want to shake them well. Kind of when I put it out of the bottle, I'm going to see if it has that little bright blue rim around it. That means that all of the binder is not incorporated. That means I put the lid back on. This isn't too bad, but it does need another shake. Yeah, using a lighter color like a tan under a yellow can work really well. What you use under it, like if you're using a high coverage color, is really up to you. I mean, even stained ivory would work well too because it has a lot of yellow in it, but I tend to use something that's more ochre-y. You could even use something like blonde hair. It's more yellowy. And then put yellow over the top of that. The key is that when you're painting yellow, you want to paint it over a lighter base coat, not a dark one. So then we're going to go about 1, 2, I'm going to do, this is about 8 drops, so I'm going to throw 2 drops. That's a 4 to 1. It's a little thicker than I usually start, but I know that this blue is a bit transparent. So knowing that, I want to look at it. I don't want to put my first coat on really heavy or it's going to cover up all my zenith and I won't have anything to work from. But I do want to get a fairly solid color on it as well. So 1 more drop. Now we're about a 2 to 1. 2 to 1 might be the right sweet spot. When you're working with a well palette like this, which you should be if you're really thinning paint down into big puddles like this, you can often look at the edges of it and see how your paint is falling off the edge. If you mixed up something more thick before you added all this water and you want to see, you can always transfer it to a new well. Yeah, that's still a bit thick. This blue has a lot of staying power. So now I'm going to drop down something that's going to be more like 1 to 1. Notice how easily it falls off the side of the palette at this point, and the transparency. That's the amount of transparency we're going to get when we put it over our jacket here to paint that jacket in. So the key here is that you can always add another layer, but you can't take a layer off. Lagging badly, Inara? I'm not getting any drop frames. Do you want me to run an internet test, Justin? I don't have my disembodied voice has disappeared. IG girl, hi, welcome. I haven't seen you before. I am Anne. White is chalky and not the best color to start with. Okay, so white primer, you mean? Or do you find like, are you talking more like when you're adding highlights, or can you give me an elaboration there? White, one thing I will say is that if your white goes chalky when you thin it down, it's a sign that it's not heavily pigmented. That's one thing that usually will happen. Like if you load pigment into a white, it usually will not go chalky. Oh yeah, Augerbot. I talk at length about well palette versus wet palette. While I wait for IG to get back to me on the white chalky thing, just tell me exactly when you mean it, IG. When white is chalky, not the best color to start with. I'm not sure what you're talking about. White primer. Interesting. No, actually, I do not find that. In fact, I never used black primer. Like for the last 20 years, I have not used black primer up until the point I started messing around with Zenith like this. When I started messing around with Zenith, that's when I switched, back to black primer, but I still spray white over the top. I just find it hard to see details on black primer if the model is very small. So for me, and this is a fairly smooth white. This is Games Workshop white, I think. I used a spray. I also use Tamiya Fine Surface White Primer. I think the quality is here, the issue here, IG Girl, is that primers are not all created equal. So if you have a good quality primer, you're going to find that it's less chalky or speckly or whatever you're dealing with. Whereas if you search around for a really good quality primer that's made for figures, that's essentially a fine detail primer and not an automotive primer, you may get better mileage. The best primers in my experience, as far as being smooth and not speckly or chalky or having a weird texture, are Tamiya or Tamiya. It's Tamiya Fine Surface Primer or Games Workshop. Even though they are both expensive, it is worth it. The can still lasts a really long time unless you're doing like multiple armies. And so I actually prefer white. I do a lot of the Zenith these days if I'm working on something big with a dramatic lighting effect, but otherwise I go for white or light gray. So I'm not a black primer fan. Unless the model is extremely dark. If I want something really dark and moody, then I might go black, but only if it's bigger. But yeah. Okay, so now, Augurbot. About this, just to put it in a nutshell, you aren't going to be able to really judge consistency on your glazes very well if you're working on a wet palette. You're going to have to mix every brushful separately. When you try to thin your paint down to glaze level, it's going to just immediately change its consistency because it's going to wick water down into the sponge or it's going to wick water up through the paper. So, yeah, no problem. No problem at all, IG. It's what I do. So the thing that I usually tell people when they are a starting out painter is get both. Get the wet palette because it is good at some things and it does make mixing a lot more intuitive and easier and it feels a lot more fun. But also get a nice wet well palette like this. This is a 28 well porcelain palette. As you can see, it cleans up really well. I've been using this one for years and I just throw it in the water with a little bit of like hot water and usually some like kitchen cleanser, whatever spray I have on hand, 409 or Method or whatever, simple green, doesn't matter. And just let it soak for like 5 minutes, and then I use a green scrubby and it all comes up. But the great thing about this is that you can build your wells to a particular paint consistency and it stays that way. On a wet palette, this is not the case. When you are new, part of becoming a great painter, or at least a good painter, is in getting a feel for the paint consistency that you need for different techniques, right? There's a paint consistency for layering, and there's a paint consistency for glazes. There's a paint consistency maybe for wet blending if you do a lot of wet blending. You know, there are different paint consistencies that are going to do different things for you. And if you are on a wet palette, it's going to be very hard to internalize that with any consistency, because the minute you put water into a paint on a wet palette, the consistency changes because you've got the sponge and you've got the permeable membrane. So I always advise people to start out on the well, mixing, get yourself a dropper bottle water. Watch some of my videos. If you watch my video from ReaperCon, I actually used this model for it. It's free. It's up on our YouTube, Reaper Miniatures YouTube, and it's about thinning your paints. Thinning MSP paints is, I believe, the title of it. It'll give you ratios for all sorts of things, for all sorts of techniques. But in order to utilize those with any, reliability, you've got to have a well palette. And a lot of people will say, oh, my paint dries out so fast in a well palette. And the thing is, that means that you're not adding enough paint to each well. A lot of people put like 1 drop of paint down. They're scared of running out of paint. In reality, each of these bottles has 400 drops in it. I counted. Between 350 and 450 drops will come out of one of these suckers before it's empty. Don't be shy using your paint. Even me, and I paint all week, every week at this point, I only have run out. I've run out of 2 colors. I run out of pure black, or maybe walnut because I use more walnut instead of black. And then I run out of pure white. So don't be afraid of running out of paint. But the key here is to build a big puddle. Like I had 8 drops in here, and then I added a bunch of water, like 4 drops of water. This paint is going to stay at this consistency for at least 45 minutes to an hour. I'm not going to have to adjust it. I can paint freely with it. If I was layering with it on a big model, I wouldn't have to touch it. It would be great for quite a while. So the key to getting mileage out of a palette like this, and you do want the one with the smaller wells like this, for that reason, is that you're limiting your surface area to depth ratio. And so your paint stays good longer. And it will always be at the correct frequency. So like if I'm glazing here with this blue and I've got it dialed in, I have maybe 20 minutes, half an hour to just play with it before I maybe have to think about adding a little water. And it's going to stay perfect. Yeah, well, then that's why, Mathophile, that is why you need to kind of you need to internalize it, right? That's what you're working toward when you use a well palette. And do utilize, your as you say, your observation, because some paints are more viscous, right? They are going to shoot out a bigger drop. So when I give you ratios, it's a generalization, and you also need to look at the consistency and your results. I think that's kind of a given. But at least you're starting out well. And once you have used this and internalized, oh, that's what a glaze looks like. That's what a glaze feels like when I put it on the palette. This is what it looks like if I paint it over my nail. That's how thin it should be. Once you've internalized all of that, you can go back to the wet palette and mix every brushful pretty well. I mean, David, my boyfriend, he uses nothing but a wet palette. He doesn't even believe in well palettes. And a lot of painters are like that nowadays. But it took him a long time, guys. A long time to master, blending. Because he was working against himself a bit. Sorry, allergies. Allergies to the attack. Pardon me. Oh, boy. The trees here. I love them. I love them so much. Redwoods and all these nice tall beech trees and everything like that. And boy, do they attack me. Whee! All right. So that's why I say use both. Because I find the wet palette is nice for speed painting, but honestly, when I am running into like a competition piece where I need to dial in my paint and I want it to stay good for a while because I'm doing, say, texture work or something, I'm painting a wool texture on a cape, say. I need that paint to be at a perfect paint consistency to get the right effect, and it's not going to stay that way on a wet palette. So I am always working on a well palette when I'm doing my competition level pieces. Like, okay, give you an example. When I did this, that paint had to be a perfect consistency. Absolutely perfect consistency for hours and hours and hours. So every hour I would add 1 drop of water to it so I could do these tiny little embroidery bits. But, this would not have been possible for me on a wet palette. I could not have gotten this consistency. I couldn't have gotten these tiny drops so reliably. So that's an example. And this texture is here. The fine texture is on the cloth, which I probably would need to get up really close to see. You can see it a little bit. So, this was my crystal brush entry. Hi, Bob and Julie. Actually, no, did Jason do this one? Yeah, I think he did. I was going to say, hey, it's an undead. Maybe it's Bob's. But no, we're working on Pirate Guide today, guys. But we got sidelined by talk about paint consistency. So always, kind of ask yourself what you're doing, right? What techniques am I using today? If you're like my boyfriend David, and you want to block in a whole model really fast with highlights and shadows and midtones and just block everything in really fast, wet palette is where it's at. But if you're trying to do tiny micro detail and textures, that tends to be where my happy spot is, or if you're trying to do really smooth layering on skin, really smooth, then it's well palette. It's well palette all the way 100%. So your tools are going to be useful for different things. Imagine that, right? So, yeah. Yeah, it's just, I love the trees, but dang. Oh, good, Nosferatu, you are Nosferatu. You're just spelled with a 2. Yay. Right, your paints would absorb so much water that the paint was becoming puddles. Yeah, I run into that, and it happens with Master Series. Depending, I get more mileage out of my parchment paper than out of wet palette paper for MSP, but it really depends. It's like for MSP, you almost want a paper that's a little heavier, but I don't know that anybody makes that. But on the other hand, like when you're using Scale 75 tube paint or Vallejo, which is really thick, then it works okay. So. Yeah, I made photo cut. I made the first cut in Crystal Brush, guys. I knew I wasn't going to win because for Crystal Brush, being an international high-level competition, usually you got to do some sculpting or conversion to really stand out. And that is a stock model from Black Sun Miniatures. Yeah, I still made photo cut because of my crazy freehand, so it makes me happy. She has a Damascus blade, too, here. She's not safe for work, so I have to cover parts of her strategically if I'm going to put her up. But she also has a Damascus steel blade, which is metallics, which I tell you, I redid like 4 or 5 times. Ask David, I was cursing about it while I did it. But yeah, she's beautiful, and it's a very pretty model. It's called Sacrifice. And she was my Crystal Brush entry. That's why she had hours and hours of crazy freehand on her. And it's based on arabesque designs from Moorish architecture, actually. Yeah, it helps at that point, Varl, but it's still gonna, it's the nature of the wet palette. It's supposed to leach moisture, right? And it's supposed to drop moisture. So I still say, when you're learning and you need to internalize this stuff, you don't have a gut knowledge of this yet when you're starting, right? And mastering paint consistency is part of that is learning how the paint feels and how it looks, you know, and when you put it on, how does it brush on with a given brush? It's all that, right? And it's stuff that you only learn through doing. And so the best way you can line yourself up for success is to mix exactly the paint consistency you need, make a note of how you did it, and learn over time what it looks like, what it feels like. And it's real hard to do that on a wet palette. So yeah, thank you for compliments, guys. Yeah, I love my sacrifice girl. She's probably the best thing I've done so far, although I'm setting out to to go beyond with my new project, so. Yeah, Stein Wars is a good primer. I don't use it. Oh, that's great, Dragon Eye. I didn't know. Yeah, that was fun. I was glad. I was super happy that people like Ben Comets, you know, who I really respect, and Sergio remembered her from the case and were like all happy about her, like really thought she was good. So it's always, that's one of the reasons I like to go to competitions, is that, you know, you meet painters that you really admire, and then, you know, when they like what you do, then you get this huge, like, dopamine, you know, happy rush. All right, so I decided this was actually a little bit too thick, so when I put it on my thumb, so that's not bad. So essentially what you're looking at, and I use my thumb as an example on the camera, but when you're brushing this across here, you can still see, right, the line where my thumb becomes the nail, right? So that means when we put this blue over this black and white primer, you're going to still be able to see the black and white through it, which is exactly what you want. Now, when you're painting with this thin paint, you need to cover it in a pretty solid, pretty smooth coat. You don't want to let the edge dry, so you start kind of at the top and you start working down. If you miss a spot or you see some beading up, that's not a big deal. You can always go back. If you see beading, then it's a little bit more alarming, but everything should cover in a smooth layer. And it doesn't have to be a very hard layer. Like, this is just almost a really thin wash at this point. It is really a glaze. So, but the important part is that it preserves our light and our shadow that we got from our primer. So, just got to make sure that I can get it all on here and that it sticks. The only problem sometimes is if you have a primer that's really slick or you've handled the model a lot, the oils from your fingers may actually kind of cling to the model and want to keep a really thin wash like this or glaze from working, like from sticking. So that can be a challenge. All right, so he's got a big belt there. That's pretty good. If you see any excess pooling, guys, wick it off. Don't leave it or you'll get a weird artifact. Resin pieces, like as far as priming, okay, Augerbot, for priming and stuff. Oh, good, Jason, yay! Yeah, good. I was hoping sculptors would stop. And so Gwitty and Green here in chat, guys, is Jason Wiebe, who sculpted this model. Jason, this is fantastic because you know I'm a huge Goonies fan and have been since the movie came out. So it is awesome. Yeah, so Augerbot, Reaper miniatures do need priming if they're metal. If they're bones, if they're the plastic, then you don't need primer. A lot of people, I'm hearing that a lot lately, and I think we really need to get on informing the consumer about that, because I think so many people are using bones now that it gets said because they just assume that you're not doing metal. But we still sell a lot of metal models, so if you get a metal model, you do need to prime it. If you get this is a resin, you need to prime it. Absolutely need to prime it. The only thing you do not need to prime are bones, because they have this weird quality of the paint kind of bonding to the PVC. Like, whatever witchy mixture Ed got them to do is magical, and I never prime my bones, not ever. Well, Saltor, just start out with your base coat, and that's just like a 4-to-1 paint to water. That's easy. Shake your paints really, really well when you first start out. And yeah, Pendrake has another good point is that if you wash your bones, you'll get better mileage. I always wash mine in hot water with a little bit of dish soap, swoosh them around in a plastic bowl, rinse them off, let them dry on a paper towel overnight. You're good. Or a dish towel, whatever you got. we've got Bob, Julie, and Jason in chat. Yay, sculptors! Oh, Julie, wait, you weren't here yesterday. Let me get Sphinx out. We did blue hair. I'll probably tone it down a bit, so it's more black on that side with just Raven highlights. But then you can see the top and this side we did blue. This is another model that we're working on stream, guys. Lately is Sphinxy. I like Sphinx. So yeah, so I'm gonna tone down the blue so it gets more like raven haired kind of thing. But I wanted to do kind of a contrasting color. So there we go. Now both Jason and Julie get to see models yeah, I bet this was a challenge, Jason. The details are like really, really, fine, and there's a lot of different textures. It's the All-Star Sculptor Show. Yeah. Yes, watch. Well, I never watch. I to be very honest, I never wash all my minis. I don't even wash my resin models, which horrifies people like Rhonda, who uses, I think, alcohol, isopropyl, to kind of bathe her resin pieces before she paints on them. But I've just never found it necessary. Like, I prime it, it's okay. That's weird. That's oversharing, Omadar. Oversharing, 2-point penalty. So let's continue to get our blue, our nice blue on here. I'm going to try to kind of see where things are. That's probably part of the rib cage there, so I probably shouldn't paint it blue, but I can always go back and touch it up. So over here, as you can see, the blue's going to be darker because we have, a lot more black. So we're painting it over black. It is going to be in shadow, but we still want to get that base coat on. Because we want a little bit of light down here. We just aren't going to have as much. Oh, hi, Night SOS. Yeah, actually, we're going to do 2 D&D streams this week. So that's because I want to test it. I noticed I was getting more viewers, and I want to see if that's true even on days where it doesn't lead up to Reaper Live. So we're actually doing a D&D stream on my Twitch channel later today, and that'll be twitch.tv/paintingbig at about 4:30 p.m. Central Time. So we're going to go and we're going to, what are we doing? We're creating some of the specifics about the Dragonborn race today, actually. I want to know which colors people think would be subterranean type dragonkin who like water and moisture, and which colors they think the above ground kind of desert sunlight loving dragonkin would be. And some other stuff too. So we're going to have fun later today. Oh yeah, Wild West Witch is a great model, IG girl. That one's a great mini. Uh-oh, what happened? I'm missing chat. No, chat is so important. I cannot miss chat. I must scroll up and see what the thing is going. Oh noes. Yes, more me. Well, I did painting stream on Tuesdays before, but it just seems like people really love the D&D stream, so I'm going to keep doing it because it's fun and I still get to paint, so why not? Let's see here. So lots of people talking. Yeah, for sure. I think all the sculptors feel that way, that seeing how people paint stuff, is one of the best things about being a sculptor, I bet. It's because they come up with stuff that you may never have thought yourself. Like, I'm painting this guy pretty bright when it comes down to it. Let's see here. Jetta. Okay, good. No lag here. Lost sound. Are we good? Can everybody hear me now? I was trying to catch up on chat, but you're all like talking too enthusiastically, so I'm going to give up. I'm going to give up and put another, actually what I'm going to do is, strengthen up this a bit and maybe add a drop of black. So what I want to do here, guys, as I paint, remember, once I put one more layer on here, we're going to lose a lot of the feel for the lights and darks on this model. You'll see the darks start to come up lighter, and you'll see the lights go darker, right? Because we are using a pretty dark blue, so every layer of dark blue I add here is going to kind of obscure these highlights. And it's going to obscure the fact that we've got a very light side here, and over here it's going darker, but you still have some light here. You know, those details are why you did the Zenith Prime in the first place, so that it could help you with where to put your highlights and shadows and how intense they are. So before we even put our second coat on, I'm going to mix up 2 colors. I'm going to add white to this blue, or maybe I'll add tropical, as I was mentioning earlier. So I'm going to mix whatever. I'm going to mix a lighter blue color so that I can use it to essentially start painting over the lighter areas. And I'm going to mix a shadow color, which is mostly void blue with maybe a touch more of black, where I can use that to make sure I don't lose these shadow parts, where I make sure that, oh, this is almost black. It needs to stay almost black. If I don't do that, if I just paint this dark blue over it, everything will eventually go dark blue, and you'll lose your guide. So that's really the way to do Zenith. Oh, everybody can hear me? Okay. Oh, yeah, actually we do. We have the new Discord server night, and I cannot... if you go to my Twitch channel, which is twitch.tv/paintingbig, on that screen it should have social media links, and it has a link to the Discord. I put it up. I'm also going to make a Discord command for my personal streams, so then you'll be able to find it. Also the World Anvil that we're setting up. So cool. All right. Oh, you managed to mute me. All right, cool. Twitch is twitching. You know, it happens. If you practice sculpting, you should bring it to ReaperCon and show the sculptors, because they are wonderful about giving feedback to new sculptors, Nomad Zeke. I think that I always see the sculptors be so excited when somebody wants to start sculpting, and they're so helpful. And as far as starting sculpting, starting with not major conversions can be a real booster. Do some base work sculpting, you know, sculpt the little stuff. Don't try to go, if you're trying to put a toga on an Etten, yeah, that's going to be difficult. Oh yeah, sorry, Void Blue 9417. It's kind of like Ezrin Blue, but it's a little darker. Little more muted. I wanted a navy, and so actually Ridderlich 9115 is normally my choice for navy, but I decided that I wanted... Here, sit, One-Eyed Willy, while I mix up your shadow and highlight colors. Actually, I think I'm just going to use my base blue and add a drop of black to it. And hey, Xandercles, you are here. Xandercles has entered the building. I'm going to add... So remember I started out with about 8 drops of blue on this one, and I'm adding a drop of black. Just to take it down just a little bit more. And I'm going to see it, because our black is really strong, and I figured that it was going to affect this blue like heavily, and I'm absolutely correct. It has now gone to almost blue-black, so it's really gone dark. That was 1 drop of black in 8 drops of that blue. That shows you how strong our black is. So now I need to mix up a highlight color. So let's do my tropical blue plus void blue. Yeah, that's what he was originally concepted off of, Rax, I believe. Like, that was the inspiration for him, I should say. If I understand it correctly from Jason. Thanks, GB, for sending Knight the link to the Discord. Yeah, it's a tiny Discord so far, but hey, it takes time to grow these things. Oh yeah, it is a nice space for blue dragons for sure, and you can work it up really nicely. I'm gonna try a 2-to-2 ratio here. Tropical's a little weaker than Void, so I kind of expect it to not make a very different color. I'm gonna just do a 2-to-1. So it's 2 drops of Void, 2 drops of Tropical, 2 drops of water. I'm gonna mix it up and see what it looks like, and if it's not light enough, then I'm probably going to add more. So my color split looks like this right now, and I think I do need more tropical there. I want a definite light color, and I may need to go all the way up to tropical, since it is, it's a medium light, right? It's not a super light color. Yeah, we'll just do that. I think that's where we want to go, and then we'll do up all the way to tropical blue at the far end here, and I probably need, at this point, some white also. So what this is showing you guys... I'm mixing all my shadows and highlights before I even start to put my second coat on the model. And that's because as I go, I'm going to want to preserve all these darks and lights in the primer. So that means I need everything open and everything mixed up and ready to go so that I can paint every section with the appropriate color. So essentially when you're using Zenithal like this, it almost becomes a paint by numbers, right? Where after your initial coat, which you set the general tone for, then you're layering on, you're putting on your lights, you're putting on your darks, you're kind of painting them in where you see them. Cool. I forgot to mute my Discord. Duh, it figures. Hold on. Streamer mode enabling. 1 second. Sorry, everybody. Sorry for the burbles. I didn't mean to burble y'all. If people could stop messaging on my Discord right now, that would be lovely. Where is my streamer mode? Streamer mode! And enable. Alright, there we go. You may now all resume babbling at each other. You may now resume burbles. Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. There we go. That said, I'm happy to have more people on the Discord. Much chatting, much stuff. All right, white. We need our white. Technically, if I wanted to, you can split as many hairs here as you want to. Like, I've got a medium tone now, I've got a light tone, and I could go up to a 50-50 white and tropical if I wanted to, but I think I'm just going to spot mix it. Which, this would be the point where a wet palette would actually work pretty well for you guys. So if you've got a wet palette and you can lay down, you know, this initial stuff and then get these kind of blobs mixed up on your palette, then you can go back and forth and kind of like block stuff in a bit. You may not be able to blend great on with a wet palette. Depends on if you're doing wet blending or if you're trying to layer. Layering doesn't work well on a wet palette, but wet blending works great on a wet palette. So, and I'm going to do some spot wet blending here probably. Meaning I'm going to do a tiny wet blend here and there. A lot of people use wet blend to block in areas, and I do use that on big models with a big brush. But I also find that I do these days a lot of spot wet blending, where I just want a quick transition. So, all right, it's not you this time. Oh, did we summon Reaper John? Oh no, too many burbles. I'm sorry, Shadow Raven. Well, now I'm on streamer mode, so you will not be getting them on my end anymore. At least not now. Oh, Darkest Dungeon. Supposed to be good minis. David and I might have to look at it. I'll try to remember the name. I'm not familiar with the IP. Alright, so now I'm going to do some, say, spot wet blends with making mixes of white and tropical blue. I know that my highest highlight is going to be up here on the collar, right? Because if you look at how much our wash kept stuff light, you can see that this is light. There's kind of a line of light going down the front of his sleeve here, and then the top of the cuff here is really light. I could make the cuff in a you know, contrasting color, but I kind of just want to do it blue because I feel like this guy's got a lot of neutrals on him with the bones and everything, so I feel like I want to definitely introduce color where I can. So since I know this is the lightest, I'm going to use a really light blue at the top of this collar. And one thing I'm going to do in a moment is I'm also going to glaze with kind of a more golden white color because that's the color that I'm kind of utilizing. You can see I've gone orange here on the back of this throne. That suggests light color. This yellow here suggests light color. You know, it's everything in here is saying that there's kind of a golden light falling down. So if I only highlight this with white, it's not going to back up that appearance, right? It's going to look a little bit weird. So we'll get back in here with some yellow tones in a bit. Darkest Dungeon. Okay, you guys have intrigued me enough. I need to stop and make a note and go look at it and see how crazy it is. The question is it a significant discount to get it on the Kickstarter? Like, some aren't. Like, we looked at it, oh, what was it? The expansion for Gloomhaven. And we didn't really get much of a discount, and so we just decided to wait until it comes out and buy it. But I'd like to go look at the miniatures on this one. I'm always up for D&D miniatures. All right, cool. Back to our regularly scheduled non-Kickstarter stuff. Oh, sure, that's fine, Chibi. I just wrote it down, but yeah, if you put it up in Supplies Talk, where everybody goes to spend more money. All right, let's take some dark here. I'm going to take some of my really dark paint, and I'm going to use it to really... And I'm going to keep it pretty thick, too, guys, because at this point, I want to block in this area as really dark. So, like, right here, anywhere I see that should be in shadow, I want to use a really dark blue. And with dark colors over black, like, this will blend just fine. You don't have to worry about blending it, really. Plus, dark colors tend to just naturally be more transparent anyway, so you can get away with a a not as thin ratio when you are mixing them for blending. That's why transparency is a boon. People tend to treat transparency as a negative, but in reality, it actually helps you when you're layering and glazing, or using thinned applications where you want blending. So now I've painted all that really dark blue in there, so that's really reinforced those shadows. I also want to do it behind his head here, because there's a really dark shadow there. Anywhere I see my black primer be really strong, I want to paint that really dark blue. It'll still read more as blue in person. It's not reading quite as black, but you want to reinforce. This is what I call reinforcing your zenith. Because you know you're going to lose it as you put paint on. So get your darks blocked in with your dark blue and reinforce it so that you don't lose it. Now that we'll have these really dark shadows placed and they're blue, they're the appropriate color, now we know we're going to keep that dramatic lighting effect. But yeah, if you keep just painting a medium color over your zenith, you will absolutely lose it. So that's why this is kind of necessary. Put down one coat of the color that you're looking for so that you know what you're going to mix off of it. Let's do this whole sleeve, actually. Let's just show you guys. Because the light is falling kind of at this angle. So if you look at it, you can see where the light is falling, right? It's falling from up here. It's going down here. It's hitting this edge of this little placard. It's hitting this part of the skeleton. And then it keeps going right down the sleeve, right? You can see it. You can absolutely see where the light is falling down here. So we know that we need that to stay lighter. Let's see here. That's funny. Funny night, SOS. Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll see. I'll take a look at it. David and I like miniatures board games. Alright, so now let's take some lighter color. Now the first thing I may do, I think I'm going to paint something medium light on there first. I'm going to go for my tropical blue and start blocking that in. Because this over here isn't as light as this area. It's lighter, but it's not like super bright because it's not getting the brunt of the, it's kind of behind his head. So I'm using the tropical blue for a starter here. And I'm going to paint that over where my highlight color, you remember where my white goes, right? Where you saw this area. So this is all going to get some tropical blue. And this is where I'm going to kind of adjust some stuff. Like if I decide I want a little light over here, maybe I'll put a little bit of a highlight along the back of that sleeve. And this is where you kind of experiment. You kind of ask yourself what looks right. If I think this is a little bit too light, I can take my original void blue color and kind of glaze it over there to make it darker. And if I really feel like I've made it way too light, I can come in with my void blue plus black and kind of trim it up, fade it in a little bit, go darker with it. That is up to you. So you got to ask yourself, how is the light going to fall? See, I think I can see that lower edge there. You can even see it here on the camera, right? And I'm constantly doing this when I zenith. When I'm trying to get a light source coming consistently from one direction, I'm always looking at the model top down and judging what can I see. And whatever I can see is where I throw the highlight. Like right now, right, almost looks like he is turning away from the light. You're right, Kuroniko. Are they, Nomad Zeke, I wondered about them because they had a new Kickstarter and I really loved the look of it. Like Dark Norse or whatever it was. But I couldn't find really good reviews on them because it seems like they've been late, really late on a lot of Kickstarters. So if you say, is the plastic, like, are the figures nice? Like, is it good, quality? Oh, John is blown away by the Darkest Dungeon one. All right, well now I'll have to go look after the stream after my grocery trip while I'm eating lunch. I'll sit and look at it. So the cuff here, this little bit right above his cuff, that also, when I look down the arm, I can see it. So I'm going to put a little highlight there. But yeah, when a company doesn't fulfill, when they're really, really late and they've still got, when a company has a couple of Kickstarters that are still pending fulfillment and then they start a new one, I get red flags. And I think that the creators of that Joan of Arc game, they were like that. Like, they still hadn't fulfilled like their previous Kickstarter, and they were launching a new one. And I was not. It did not boost my confidence. People, it's so funny how Kickstarter has evolved, right? Now you look for things like, are you saving a lot of money? Do you have is there an early bird bracket? And that, gives you that initial rush, or do you have a Reaper where you have a shipping order where if you sign up earlier, you get it earlier, that kind of thing. There we go. So now I'm bringing in some white plus tropical, guys. Look how that pops that light up, like going down that arm. Now that might be too much, and I'm really not, like, this shoulder is bothering me now, and I really need to question myself on it. Because I feel like I need more light here. I feel like that shadow is too weird. I'm not quite getting the feel I want. So I have to stop and look. Yeah, I feel like I need more light. So always kind of be double checking yourself with your light source. And if something looks weird, if some shape looks odd, try something else and see. Because just because there's an angle here on the shoulder doesn't mean that the light isn't going to go around it. So we got to kind of like keep an eye on that. Now I've got more light there. I like it a little bit better. No, in air jelly. I'm doing the traditional. He's kind of the inspiration for him is kind of One-Eyed Willie from the Goonies movie, and he was in a ship, with light falling through a broken deck above him. So that's exactly what I'm doing here. If I was doing underwater, everything would have to be blue. The problem with painting underwater, and if you do it right with the encaustic reflections and everything and the light filtering through the water, it can be really cool. But you have to remember that you wouldn't have any red. Like, red is the first thing to go. If you are not like just 2 feet below the surface of the water, you lose red. And the next thing you lose is yellow. So essentially everything would be bleached out and greenish or bluish. So I'd lose the red. It would go toward more of a gray. The yellow would go very green or aqua. So that's the problem with painting something as if it's underwater, is that's seawater filters light. And so to get really a realistic effect there, you really need to watch your colors. You lose a lot of colors very fast. Yeah. So always consult science. I guess is my side. It's like I always tell you guys over and over again. I always say when you're painting an animal, always look up pictures of the animal, even if you think you know what a wolf looks like. Working from life, when doing anything on painting and art, it will inevitably make your model look more realistic. Like, at this point, you'd think I know what wolves look like because I paint and draw them all the time, but at the same time, I always go and look up pictures of wolves because it always brings up some detail that I'd forgotten. All right, I'm getting better. I got to figure out this area. This is going to be lighter, but not super light. So, and there are buttons there, so I need to work my way around the buttons, and this is definitely part of his lapel. And when in doubt, just block it in a medium blue. And you see now I'm not using thin paint anymore. My paint is thinned, but it's like kind of a thick layering paint at this point. Because at this point, I'm not trying to use the zenith anymore. All I'm using with the zenith for at this point is to remind me where the light is and to help me block in darker shadows. Yes, Jelly, a reference is invaluable. Yeah, you do that. When it's bounced up, it's called encaustic reflections. It's that kind of spiderwebby look where the light goes, how the light goes when it goes through water or is bounced off of the water surface. It's a ripple, it's the ripples catching the light or pooling the light, and that's how the light gets down into the water, and it makes that rippling effect both ways, both reflecting up onto a surface under like the underside of a boat and also passing through the water down below. Makes that weird kind of effect. And getting that to look real is possibly one of the hardest challenges in painting. Plus, I tend to not even be attracted to underwater. So I'm mixing white and tropical now, guys, to make kind of a little lighter color. So I remember I've got really a lot of light right here falling on the model, so I need to make sure I keep all of that. But yeah, I tend to hate the fact that I can't use all my colors, so I'm not generally attracted to the really muted scheme, limited scheme of painting something like it's underwater. Like, technically, my seahorse that I did is totally not proper unless he's in super shallow water, because I used so many bright colors on him. So there I was just painting fantasy when I painted the hippocampus during the Kickstarter a long time ago, but some of you remember. Because I did use so many bright colors, and I was not painting him like he's... Was not painting him like he was really underwater, even though he was. Which is fine, you can do that. I mean, I tend to like realism. If you're going to paint something like this like it's underwater, then you've got to pay attention to the rules. Otherwise, it's not going to look like it's underwater. Not really. Gonna get some highlights on this. Probably do need to make these little buttons gold. And I want a fairly bright light coming in here. So I am getting brush strokes. I'm not layering. Once again, I'm just blocking in. This is almost like a second layer of zenith. It's a reminder. And then I start blending from here. And you can absolutely do this. You're blending, when you start it, if you see brush strokes, don't view it as a problem. View it as a beginning. You use that time to make sure you've got your highlights placed in the right places. So even me, when I'm blocking in here and it's all rough and crumbly and it's not blended, is because I just want to get my light right. Once I've got my light right, then I can pop back and blend everything. It's super easy because blue is so translucent. I can continue glazing I can do another glaze over this whole thing with my initial void blue. And it's been about an hour, so now I do need to drop a drop of water into that void blue to keep it at the right consistency. So I just picked up a brush full of water and just dropped a drop in. It's gotten to be second nature with me, because I've been painting with a well palette for so very long in so many different circumstances. I'm going to take my really dark blue and reinforce the shadow under the collar here. When you've got a really bright light source, you're going to get really dark shadows. So you want to make sure that you keep those. And don't be afraid of them. Put in that harsh shadow. Put in the harsh shadow on the inside of this collar here. I'm going to use blue for that too. And even though it's really dark, it still has enough blue in it to read as a really dark blue back here, so that's good. And reinforcing that shadow is what gives you that bright light sourcing, you know, that look of a very bright light source coming down, right? In fact, I need to add more dark shadow over here. I've got a nice dark shadow here, but I need more dark over here to reinforce the look. Yeah, exactly, Night SOS. Disney did not do very well on realism. Yeah, go figure, right? Does Disney ever do well on realism? No. Yeah, Ariel's hair would go brown. First it would go brown, and then it would go probably gray, dark gray, underwater. Because you'd lose the red, so that would leave you with orange and blue mixing together, which would initially make brown until you got really dark, where you really have a strong blue light, really like a bit deeper, and then it would go to probably dark gray. I know, it's just terrible. We're disillusioning you all now. All right, let's see here. So now I need to ask if there are any places over here that would get a brighter light, because right now these look very different. We've got a lot of light over here. We don't have a lot of light over here. Sometimes you want to add just a little bit to tie these two places together. So this isn't my brightest highlight, but I'm kind of asking myself, where would the light fall? See, and even putting that little touch there of the same color or close to it makes this stand out a little bit more now. Makes it look more like it's the same model. And then I'll probably do also a little bit of this color here. That's right behind his head, so I cannot rationalize it there. Maybe a little bit down here. So what it comes down to is go for realism, but then when you feel like you need maybe to go a little stylistic and just kind of use your gut on a couple of places to make the model look better, go for it. I mean, When I pick up that sleeve, now it looks like the coat is all the same stuff. Before I picked up that sleeve with a little bit of more highlight, it didn't really look like that. I am actually going to drop this shoulder a little bit. There. That way I can keep I need more on the top of that sleeve though. Because magic or because marketing with Shadow Raven. Magic. It's a magical hot tub. Yeah, I mean, it's up to you. If you want to go with just more paint, and not less realism, more stylistic and just artistic, do it. There are plenty of artists who do that. One of the best known Hawaiian painters of undersea life regularly throws more color into his paintings than is realistic, but they look great. So they've sold for decades. There we go. A little bit better. A little bit more light coming down. So the key here is I'm using the same color here as I did up here, but I'm using tiny touches of it. So it's not reading quite the same as it does when you cover a lot of area with it. But yes, you may always feel free to do whatever. But if you come up to me, say at a con, and you say, or you send me a picture, or you post it on my Discord, and you say, hey, I'm trying to paint it like it's underwater, and then you use all those bright colors, then I'm going to ding you, because you said, I'm trying to paint it like it's underwater. If you just put up a hippocampus painted really bright, I'm not going to ding you because you didn't say, well, I want this to really look like it's underwater. So it's all your goals, right? It's just about your goals. And when I comment and when I try to help you, often I will ask questions in my own Discord for my Patreon. I'll ask questions like, what are you going for here? And if your answer is, I don't know, then I'll be like, okay, well, if you're going for this, if you're going for that, that. But you should kind of have a concept as you're going in to most models. Kind of an idea of where the character is. It will help you out. So we've got now touches of that lighter color in appropriate places. We've got a lighter area over here. I'm going to continue to bring that up a bit. And I think we're going to introduce the yellow. I think I am going to bring in, I need to blend this a little bit. So just pretty much grabbing my void blue on my brush. And glazing, I want to glaze it over this first. Then I can bring my highlight back up. And if you lose your shadow, then you just grab your dark blue and you add it back in. Yeah, if you're going to paint this like underwater in a Disney cartoon, rock. Yeah, rock on. Oh yeah, best discount in chaos is definitely us. Yeah, if it's 20%, that's significant enough that I would pull the trigger on a Kickstarter. But you looked it up online, Jellyware? Yeah. Cool. Yeah, and that's the best thing to do, right? Look it up online, see what the color is. I was guessing more brown for Ariel's hair because at least, for like 20 feet underwater, just because she's got a lot, it's a hair color, so it's not actually super bright. It does have some brown in it already. But yeah, you're right. Probably go pure blue. Light colors mixing can be weird. David has a really good understanding of it. Yeah, sorry about that, HM. You do very well. Your name is Grim. I would expect you to not do a lot of bright happy. I do love bright happy things. Okay, so do you guys want to know something funny that I read this morning? It's not funny for the turkey farmers, but it was an article about how turkey farmers are scared that that they've essentially gambled on making too many big birds this year and they won't sell them. And part of the problem is that with carnivals and Renaissance fairs specifically shutting down this year, the turkey leg market has evaporated, and it tickles the heck out of me to see Renaissance fairs listed as a significant devourer of turkey legs, because of course they are, but it's so funny to see it in a mainstream like Bloomberg article. It's like, Renaissance fairs, you are now an economic factor, at least in the turkey leg production industry. It tickled me. I don't know, it just did. Oh dear, let me see here. All right, now I want to add some yellow. Where's my yellow? I want a yellowish cast to this. Where's my lemon? Lemon yellow. I'm using a lot of lemon yellow lately. I know you guys will probably notice this. So this is a greenish yellow. It's not an orangish yellow. And it has a lot of white in it. It is the original 9009, so it's one of the first MSP colors we ever created. It itself is very bright. Bright and light. It's that color. It's lemon yellow. But if I glaze it, if I make it into a glaze, I can add touches of golden light to this. And get kind of a greenish cast. So David talks about this in his OSL video, which just went up on Reaper Miniatures YouTube, so go and watch it if you're interested in light source effects or glowing objects, or painting something that's under firelight, or anything like that. Go look up my boyfriend's video on Reaper Miniatures Twitch. It is OSL or other source lighting, or overhead source lighting, or object source lighting is what a lot of people interpret that. It's gone by all of those various interpretations for as long as I can remember. But he does it fantastically, and one of the things he talks about is that the color of the light and the color of the underlying object are going to interact. And a lot of people tend to just take this to mean I just need to paint some garish yellow splash where the light is hitting most strongly. This is not actually the case. The real case is that the yellow light is going to act like light, but it's just going to have a little bit of a hint of, in this case, it's going to shift things green, right? Because you've got yellow light on blue cloth. Just like if you have yellow light falling on green, it's going to shift the green lighter and yellower. So it's not just that you paint a splash of yellow on the shoulder here. It's that you actually glaze it on so that you can see how it affects the colors of everything. And I'm going to be doing this same thing with all of the other stuff here, including the bone. And I did it up here too. I used more of a yellow to highlight each of these things so that I could translate, I can make you guys kind of see, even if you don't immediately recognize it, even if it's after the fact, you kind of notice the color of the light. Let's see here. Oh, yay, and Reaper John with the link. Go and watch David's video after we are done here. I will tell him that I have plugged him. Also, his website is lightminiatures.com. He has an excellent painting blog on there with the best OSL article on the internet. It is #1 in Google searches. My guy is so smart. He's so smart. He's such a good painter. So, yes. Definitely check out all of that because he really teaches it really well. I attended one of his classes just because I was waiting for him to get out of it, and I actually his teaching style is really good for it, I think. So he let me he helped me to kind of figure out like a good way to communicate about light sourcing. Like, I knew these things, but he put them in good terms for it. So I think David teaches this subject really well. Better than I do. He has this innate understanding of light that's just cheaty. Not fair. So I'm going to add touches of this yellow glaze all down wherever the light is falling most strongly. Now notice how much more visually complex and interesting this looks now. It's not just flat blue anymore. It's got touches of gold. Mini painting power couple. Yes, Jenna. That's what I thought when we first started dating. Yeah, turkeys are native to North America. And the U.S. is by far the biggest consumer of turkeys in the world. Helped by Thanksgiving and Christmas, where it's traditional. Got a little bit too overdone there. So if you think that your yellow has gotten too strong, you can glaze with your void blue to take it down. Or if you feel like if you feel like you're losing some of your, the brightness of your blue, although I wanted this to be navy, so I'm okay with it not being really bright. I think I'll work on the sleeve now. So we're going to take just our tropical blue and hit some of these areas. And again, we want to come in also and make a note of where our black is, where our shadows are here, right? And we want to re-darken them. If you can hunt down that hut, good luck on that, Pandar. I do love Renaissance fairs. I was sad that because of COVID, I couldn't go to the Renaissance fair before I left Texas because I really like Scarborough. And there are vendors there I really like. And ReaperCon isn't in the spring anymore, so I can't just come down for ReaperCon and also go to the Renaissance fair. And I know they've got fairs out here too, so I just need to find my new Renaissance fair. I've always attended them wherever I lived in the country. When I lived out on the East Coast, I went to the Maryland Renaissance Festival. It was very nice, actually. Lots of trees. I appreciate when Renaissance fairgrounds have lots of trees and shade. It's very woodsy and it feels more medieval-y to me. Medieval-y being a technical term, obviously. Putting in my shadows again. Oh, that's awesome, Trouble. Oh, wow, Grim. Funky. We had big chicken farm, an egg farm near us when I was growing up, but we never had, obviously because it was eggs, so we never had that experience of the feather storm. But yeah, seems like a lot of turkey farms are actually kind of small businesses, and so they're really worried this year. I might buy a slightly larger turkey than I was thinking of just to help them out, although with just us two, it's a hard sell to buy a very large turkey. So I've reinforced my shadows, guys. Need to make sure those are nice and dark, and I can pick out some of these little areas. So like the back part here and here, this little rim down here. Anywhere it's going to catch the light needs a stronger highlight. So things that are pointed upward. And that includes little pockets, little bits of curves here. You see this fold? That's going to catch the light a little bit too, the bottom part of that. In fact, putting a highlight there is going to make it look more real. There. And then likewise at the bottom of any little kind of chewed up parts. Going to keep a shadow under these buttons here, I think. Alright, now let's get more of our yellow glaze in here. But yeah, so your blue's going to go more greenish. And that's going to make it look a little more interesting visually. It's not just going to be blue anymore. Yeah, you guys already, I know Canadian Thanksgiving was like a week or two ago, right? 2 weeks ago? I have friends in Canada. I'm closer to them now than I was in Texas. They wanted me to come up and visit, and then when all this crap hit. So I'll have to put off my trip to Alberta. Alright, I'm going to put a little bit of a blue highlight over here on this side. Because if there's light there, there's probably just a little bit of bounce light here. Now you want to go, if you're pretty sure this is more in darkness and most of the light is falling here, you can still put highlights in these areas, but you want to keep them really understated. Going over the black primer here, even though I'm using tropical blue, it's still going to give me pretty dull blue, but at least it brings that sleeve up just a little bit, and then it becomes more imperative to get your highlights a little stronger on the front so that they look, so you can clearly see the transition. Ready for snowpocalypse. You're from Alberta too. Yeah, I have friends. I'm into the dog world, and a couple of my breeder friends live up in Alberta. One of them is a rancher, and one of them just lives up in Crow's Nest Pass, which is absolutely freaking gorgeous. And she's always posting amazing pictures from her back porch that just looks like she lives in paradise, except that they get snow in August. So I should come to Alberta to like play with little puppies when Vanessa has a litter next, and then I should also do a painting workshop. Is that what you're telling me, Shadow Raven? Is there enough painters in your area for me to do a workshop? That would be kind of a fun trip. I have my passport, and it's just like, I got my passport too, right before all this COVID stuff hits. I was so excited to have a passport again. I was like, yeah, I'm going to travel. It's going to be so much fun because I like to travel. And it's like, oh. Don't fry the frozen turkey. No, that you get Turksplosions that way. Oh, Edmonton. Yep. Yep. Yeah. When you're on the plains in Canada, yeah. I had a boyfriend when I was in college. I had a boyfriend from Saskatchewan, from Regina area, and yeah, he had all sorts of stories about the -40 weather. We were in Wisconsin at the time, and it did hit -40 one winter while I was at college, and yeah, that convinced me that one, I didn't need to live in Wisconsin for much longer, and two, that maybe Mid Plains Canada was just not my cup of tea. We ended up breaking up, uh, but yeah, it's just I remember his stories of the winters, especially on the plains area of Canada. All right, so that's looking okay. I was just looking forward to traveling again. Yeah, that's interesting. That's funny, Saltar. Yeah, I know it's in. Yeah, my mom was texting me last night because I was evil yesterday, Dragon. I didn't realize how evil I was until she texted me back. But I actually went to the hot tub here yesterday. It was 80. I sent her a picture, and she's like, "You're sitting in a hot tub, and I'm in wind and rain and cold and 45 degrees. And I was out walking this morning, and it sucked." I was like, "Oh, sorry, Mom. I didn't mean it." California absolutely cheats on climate. There we go. Now we got some light. This side I'm really happy with. This side really looks dramatic to me. This side's still working on it. Still working on it. Maybe it's a little bit light. I think I need to bring it down just a little bit. I do think I need more light here, though. The problem is there's those buttons there. And so this area is kind of... I almost need... You know what I need, guys? I need to actually put some more black in this. Let's do it. Yeah, it's cooling down here now. I really want cooler weather because it's almost National Novel Writing Month, and I rely on the crappy weather to be a great incentive. It makes me want to stay inside and cozy up with a candle and a, cup of tea and write. I really get in the mood. Once fall hits, I start getting in the mood for writing. I feel like being in California now, my writing urge is going to be delayed by a month. Yeah, exactly, Chibi, right? And I couldn't. I mean, it is really bloody expensive out here. Although now people are fleeing it in masses, so we actually got a free month's rent. When David just went down to the office to ask what the advantage was of signing a year lease instead of a month to month. And just the fact that he asked the question, they were immediately offering him 3 months of rent. So we know there have been a lot of people moving out. With all of the remote working and Google saying that it'll probably be remote for months more, a lot of the IT people around here are moving back, like, to cheaper areas to be with their families. David has a coworker who his brother and his parents are in Colorado, and he just moved. He's still working for Google, but he knows he can work remotely, so he knows that it might not last forever, so he might have to either get transferred to an office, near where he is, or if there isn't one, he'll have to find another job. But he has the flexibility to now go and look while working, right? So it seems like a lot of that. There's a lot of empty apartments where we are in our very nice complex, and it makes me think that maybe we will see rent costs going down just a little bit because there's going to be more competition among the rental places around here, trying to get the people who are still willing to pay. Yeah, yeah, Salter, yeah, and exactly. Yeah, Alton Brown has done an episode on almost everything, and yeah, deep frying turkey makes sense. Do look at Alton. At least knows the science. I love Alton Brown. Yeah, I don't know. Now that California is actually doing a really good job handling the coronavirus in Ara, I guess it makes sense that all sorts of people want to move here. Like, I did the opposite, right? When I moved here, California was one of the worst states. It was really booming in California. People thought I was nuts. But we managed to evade it, and now it's the opposite, right? I'm sure we'll peak again. I mean, we're one of the states that still has nice weather, so, I mean, we're probably getting a bit of a reprieve. But I don't know. It's been okay. I don't regret moving here in April. Oh, really? Not Butterfingers and not York Mint? Oh, that sounds awesome, Nemedzik. Yes, all hail the patron state of cookery. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna kind of wait and see on the vaccine. I mean, they are doing very large clinical trials now. Really large. Much larger than, I was reading about it this morning actually, much larger than is standard for vaccines, because they need to get a lot of people, because they rely on a lot of people actually catching COVID to judge whether the vaccine is good, right? So they actually have to get a ton of people enlisted to try the vaccine and then see if they catch it and what the incidence rate is and what the side effects are like. So I don't know if I'll probably wait a little bit, because David and I've gotten very used to the social distancing and everything. I've got my routine down, so I can afford to wait a little bit. Exactly. And there's a lot of people in stage 3. There's like 4 or 5 big companies in stage 3 trials right now. So we shall see. We shall see. I don't know. I mean, I got a pretty good, like, as far as immune systems go, I seem to be pretty okay. I haven't gotten sick for ages. Ages. Like, I haven't been truly sick for years. And I mean it. Like, that's not an exaggeration. But I eat an awful lot of vegetables now. And I always take my vitamins. So I guess I don't feel like I'm too risky holding off on the vaccine for a little longer. Just to see how it goes. I'm sure there will be a rush on it when one does get approved. Anyway, so. I've also been a bad person and not ever gotten a flu vaccine, and I probably should get that. Yeah, it's sad that we don't have a paint night, right, in person. It's for people to get together. Oh, Twitch has been picky about it, Saltar? Alright. Thanks for the heads up. It makes sense. It's kind of silly, I mean, because when you can't see people in person, you know, you want to talk about real life and what's going on, but if Twitch wants to be twitchy about it, we'll just hold off. We certainly have enough other things to talk about. Alright, so now we just gotta hit some of these areas that I totally didn't get before. And get them blued out a little bit more here. And I do have my black. So now what I wanted to do... Medieval Fight Club. Yep. Oh, yeah. Exactly. Yeah, Gran, I feel that. If I was living with my, like, near or with my parents, I would feel the same way. Like, my brother actually lives near my parents, and I would just wonder how stressed out he gets about it. Pete's pretty laid back, but you never know. Alright, so I'm going to use some black, some thinned black to outline around his beard, so that I can put a nice demarcation between my blue and the beard, because I want to be able to highlight these little bits of cloth and make it be clear that I'm not accidentally highlighting beard. So sometimes you have to line to make everything look right. So I'm going to also drop some lines just around his beard in general, where it comes up against the rib cage. Not as much here, because this is going to get really strong light, so... Let's see here. And I want to re-blacken the rib cage here, because a lot of primer won't get into these deep recesses. So make sure that that's really black. And then he's got a spine. You can see the spine just a little bit at the back, and it picks up just a little bit of light because it's light colored. So we will totally pick up some of that spine as we continue. In fact, I'll hit some white on it right now. Just little touches to remind myself that it's there. There. Now we can see a little bit of his spine. Sometimes I'll do that. Sometimes I'll just highlight something that's kind of recessed or back there, just because I don't want to forget that it's back there. Yeah, if you're high risk, definitely don't get risky. Oh, that's cool, Neillock, that you have a Saturday night paint chat. Yeah, we used to have a local paint club here. But then the store that hosted it closed down. It was right down the street from David and I. And now I don't know that we have a new store because nobody can go out yet. But hopefully, in the coming year, we can get our paint club back. And then I can start doing like in-person seminars again, which is something I enjoy doing. And I like traveling to do them too. So like anybody who has like 6 friends who want to learn from me and wants a seminar, we can talk. I don't want to travel too much. Right now, I might just be limited because Kiri is so old. I don't want to leave her with David, so I might have to wait until the Kiri is no longer with us to like go whole hog on traveling. And who knows, little Kiri, if I'm lucky, that's going to be a long time from now, right? Don't like to think about not having a Kiri around, but it will inevitably happen. She's been a good girl. Like, we're about ready to start wrapping up, and she's been a very good girl the last 2 sessions. No Kiri butt emergencies. Now that I've said that, she'll like trigger in 2 minutes. Bet you anything. So there we go, guys. Like, we've gotten a nice kind of oh, nice. Yeah, the butcher block idea is pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, let's just, play. I'm gonna have to play by ear, both because elderly dog, and David is not experienced with dogs, so I don't feel right leaving him with Kiri. But yeah, I will in the coming, so I might have to do mostly local, but you're local, aren't you, Inara? So then we're good. Like, you're a Californian. But yeah, anything further afield, I may have to wait until I don't have a little Kiri dog. We're probably going to hold off on getting a new puppy. Both because the apartment is not good for a new puppy, really. And because it would be nice to have a little bit of freedom to travel a bit and then not have to worry about kenneling a pup. Although I definitely I have my eye on a litter that's coming up, so we'll see. Yeah, Kiri, I mean, the oldest Shiloh Shepherd was actually one of the Foundation German Shepherds that our breed founder used. Campaigner's Gunsmoke. And Gunsmoke lived to be 16. So, which is a really old age for a German Shepherd. So, those genes are in us, so, I mean, I could have a Kiri for another, 3 years or so, if I get real lucky. In which case, we'll have to do something. I don't know. I guess we just wouldn't travel for 3 years. I mean, animals do really limit your travel, especially as they get older, because you don't want to stress them out, because then they can hurt themselves, or you can, trigger stuff. So you just get really a little bit limited in your travel and what you can do. There. So that's looking nice now. See, since I put that line around the beard and kind of separated it out, I'm able to separate out what's a blue and what's not. And now I think that's looking really, really good, actually. All this front of this coat and this side. Yeah, 16 is a Methuselah German Shepherd, right? Well, Kiri, when she hits 13, Kiri will have bucked to the trend. Because usually our breed's lifespan is good. I mean, it's actually, I think maybe about the same or a little bit better than a German Shepherd. We tend to do 10 to 12 years or 10 to 13 years is not uncommon. For our max lifespan, that's what most Shilohs hit. So, in general, our breed is pretty healthy. But Kiri's still doing pretty good. So she is slowing down. She sleeps a lot more now. I'm going to add a little bit of this yellow glaze over here. And there. And there. And there. A little bit there. There. That's looking... I really like how this looks now. A little tiny bit of yellow up here. Sometimes you can just use it just a little bit. I like that. There we go. Oh yeah, for sure. Punished a woo. And I can do all sorts of seminars. I mean, I can do basic stuff like, you know, teaching people how to blend, and I can do much more advanced stuff. So, and I enjoy teaching all of it. So, oh, okay. So you're central. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I'm definitely up for seminars. I just have to plan around the tiny dog. I think we're good. I think that looks pretty darn good, guys. I got my blue on. See, now what we've got is we've got a primary color scheme, right? So we've got yellow, red, blue. See it? So now as I continue, I'll be utilizing that. These pads on his chair arms are actually also red. They're the same red as this is. And I wasn't sure, but I think I might make his pants blue too, because I'll have some brown in here. And he probably has a long coat that's part of this here. So, and then the boots might be black or brown, dark brown. We got some bones coming out there. And I have to ask myself too, these little globes underneath the feet of the throne, whether I want to have those kind of glowing or not. Like, that's something we could do. And it would give us light sourcing down here in this really dark area that we don't have right now. Which would be nice because these crowned fishies on the throne sides are actually really cool, and I'd kind of like to give them a little light. So maybe if I make a really dimly glowing glass spheres down there, that would be very cool. So I'm thinking about that. Yeah, this is what I glued together. I glued the back on because I needed to have when I did the light sourcing spray couves, I needed it to be together at least this much. But I figured on the treasure chests, I could easily figure out where the highlights were going to land anyway, because they're boxes. So I decided to hold off on putting the treasure chests down. Yeah, I didn't need to pin. I mean, whether you pin is like, with this much flat connection area, I don't think you need to pin. Because it's just got so much contact area. When you put glue down here, this thing's gonna stick. Like, you'd have to, you are more likely to break off parts of the base than you are to break this off of the base. Yeah, you can also sticky tack stuff together when you do the zenith. That's true. I do that with busts, big busts, where I need to paint them in pieces. All right, Justin, I think we're pretty good. So let me, what do we got for rating? Up.
Here.
There's a Justin. I heard you like blurp blurp.
Zambies.
Yay, let's do Zambies. Yeah, Kiri is shifting like she's uncomfortable. So let us queue up for the raid. Guys, thanks for coming. Remember, later this afternoon at 4:30 p.m. Central on my own Twitch, twitch.tv/paintingbig, we're going to do a D&D stream creation, cooperative world creation. Cooperative world building. So I'll see you guys then, hopefully. Take it easy, and I'll see you tomorrow if not. Bye-bye.
Thank you guys very much. Don't forget, we have Crow's Nest today at 4 p.m. Central. And look forward to seeing you guys.